And interesting to know, Edgar's, this isn't the first time he's ran with 3 Force of Wills. He's definitely done that in tournaments before. And a lot of the circuit actually has, like AJ Soccer, Jerry, they've all cut down on forces before. And Edgar leads off with an island, foil island, of course, Edgar Flores.
It's not bug, it's blue-white. It's not bug, it's blue-white black.
If you signed up for Commender Pod number 2, we have now
Jordan
4
Zona
players. Please
playing a Rug Deck, Snapcaster Mage,
Once
Karma
again,
Glyph, Delver of
Commander
Secrets, Force of Will,
Please
Daze,
come over
Spell
to the
Snare,
core
Brainstorm,
organization.
Ponder,
Ready to go.
Bolt, Fire Ice,
Interesting.
Dismember, and Stifle.
Stifle's a card that we haven't seen all that much of in recent months, but
Jordan goes for the turn 1 Delver right there.
yep, very powerful in Legacy. And Edgar counters with a more powerful Stoneforge Mystic. We'll see if Jordan uses the Force of Will on it.
Stoneforge going to get a Batter Skull, I imagine.
Wow, no Force of Will.
No force
What
there.
do you think about that?
Well, I mean, if he feels like he can race that or otherwise have an answer, I mean, I haven't quite caught an eye on what's in Jordan's hand. If he has like a Bolt or a Fire Ice, I could see him not doing anything there. Because Batter Skull isn't that threatening when it's in Edgar's hand.
Right. And Delver flips on the first opportunity. Revealing Stifle.
It's a good one to know your opponent has.
Yeah.
All right, and in comes the Delver, dropping Edgar Flores down to 17 life. And then dismembering. There we go. There's the dismember.
Yep. Dropping Jordan down to 15. So even though Jordan's the one attacking, he is at less life.
And draws. I think that's
GT, I believe. Yeah.
So hand loaded on equipment.
Yep,
He's got Batter Skull and GT.
Not the draw he wanted, but with Jordan only on 1 land, he has to feel pretty confident.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Jordan's keep there. I mean, maybe I don't know. I might have forced that Mystic if I couldn't hit a land next turn. Because, yeah, he has Ponder to go find some more lands, and he sees 2 of them. He's going to keep both those, which he quickly does.
Instant keep. The 3rd card down, I believe, was Stifle.
Yep. It was Tropical Island, Scalding Tarn, Stifle.
Knocks Edgar to 14 life.
Yep.
And presumably just going to say go here.
And he's hitting a couple of Stifles, too.
Yep. So Jordan definitely has a controlling hand. We'll see what Edgar can do about this Delver. This game's probably going to be about Umezawa's GT for the most part here, I'd imagine, trying to connect for Edgar.
Yeah, although the Stifles will probably sort of put a dent in that plan. 2 to equip, stifle it, remove a counter, stifle it.
Right.
A lot of action there. Delver gets in for 3, and Jordan lays a Scalding Tarn before shipping the turn.
Yep, Edgar drops to 11 life, I believe that should be. Hard to make out what's in Edgar's hand right now. Looks like it's a Force of Will. See a Vendilion Click, which he opted not to cast.
See a Vendilion Click for sure. Riptide Lab. So maybe start doing some shenanigans with the click.
Yep, Snapcaster in hand also. So if Edgar can get control of this game, get that Delver off the board, it's going to look pretty good for him. He's going to have a lot of inevitability with that Riptide Lab. He is on the clock.
All right, and there's a Snapcaster Mage. Just because Snapcaster Mage, I think nothing else in the graveyard, right?
No, only a Stoneforge right now.
Yeah, you cannot Snapcaster Stoneforge, fortunately for all of us.
Yep.
So, just trying to get a body for the GT.
Interesting to note that Edgar, a resolved creature, he can only Swords to Plowshares it or Umezawa's GT it. That, or trade with it, of course, but in terms of spells, that's really it.
Also, it's kind of neat, Stifle counters Snapcaster Mage, essentially, because you can deal with the trigger and stop whatever from being recast.
Right, the scary part of it.
All right, and there's Fire Ice. 1 to Mage, 1 to you, says Jordan Zona.
And Edgar eyeing the Force of Will in his hand. He really needs to get counters on that GT. And he has to imagine that Jordan has a Force of Will. Can't keep many one-landers without.
I mean, he didn't force the Stoneforge, to be fair. And he had a Ponder. But Jordan, so Jordan does have the Force. And there goes Spell Snare.
Yep, Jordan instantly forces that back. He knows how important those GT counters are.
And granted, he can still stifle the GT if he wants to.
He can.
Although Edgar has enough lands to re-equip. At this point, anyway. Yeah, Delver's kind of card that's shown up everywhere, and it's such a spell-heavy format. It's just shown up.
It is. All the blue decks, of course, should start with 4 Brainstorm. Force of Will. Just the nature of the format and the nature of blue lends itself to a lot of spells here.
Yeah, and then you end up playing cards like, Ponder and Daze and Spell Snare. And
right.
It's pretty easy to end up with a spell-heavy deck, and the decks just basically splash for cards like Tarmogoyf and Snapcaster Mage anyway, or splash for like threats, play a light threat density. So you already have a lot of spells and very few lands to top it off. So
Exactly.
it's perfect. There's a Dark Confidant, which gets Spell Center from Jordan Zona. Plus you have Brainstorm, which sets up your Delvers nicely.
Right.
And Delver will knock Edgar to 2.
Right.
The other thing about Delver is it's a pretty tempo-heavy format, or since you're trading cards back and forth, maybe not a lot is happening on the board, so just getting in hits every turn with your 1-drop is very valuable. It's kind of like the Blue Zoo that we saw out of Caleb Durward, and that Delver ends up offing Flores.
Yeah, doing the full 20 there.
Yeah, how about that? Turn 1 Delver, you're dead, Ver.
Wow.
Going into game 2, let's see how these players are going to sideboard. Edgar Flores taking off his shirt, preparing.
Not going to be playing nice anymore, he says.
Yeah, taking off the cuffs. All right, let's see what Edgar Flores has in his sideboard.
All right, we have 2 Extirpate, 2 Disenchant, 3 Bitter Blossom, 1 Surgical Extraction, 2 Dark Blast, 3 Spell Pierce, and 2 Damnation. I have to imagine that the Dark Blasts are going to make an appearance, a way to deal with those Delvers before they flip. And even after they flip, he can always double Dark Blast as well if he has to.
Also fight Snapcaster Mage as well, which is nice.
Right. Do you think we'll see Bitter Blossoms in this matchup?
Not sure. I don't think so.
Yeah, I think versus any red deck, they're almost a liability, especially since you saw Fire Ice. That kills 2 tokens really easily, and it's just hard to get the value out of it that you need.
Yeah, I just don't see what it's doing in this matchup, really.
Right. So not a heck of a lot for Edgar Flores, it doesn't look like. I would definitely expect the Dark Blasts, maybe the Spell Pierces, depending on what he feels is important in the matchup.
I think Spell Pierce is pretty reasonable.
I think so, too, especially with all the discard. I think he might want to diversify a little bit.
I think he can probably cut some of his equipment.
Yeah.
Not sure. I think you want to keep the Batter Skull as like your big hitter to get. I'm not sure if you would rather have GT or sort of Feast and Famine.
Yeah, that's tough. I think in a format, or in this deck, he's already seen Dismember and Fire Ice. You just want something that's going to make, or have a little higher of an impact. So I think sort of Feast and Famine maybe.
Okay.
But I could definitely be wrong on that one. Edgar hasn't seen much of Jordan's deck. How about Jordan?
Jordan's sideboard, 3 Tormod's Crypt, 3 Spell Pierce, 3 Pyroblast, 1 Life from the Loam, 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Umezawa's Jite, and a Dismember.
Wow. What do you think we're going to see here from Jordan?
$10
I think we're going to see
number 1. We found that 8th player ready to go. Please come on over to the side event stage.
Dismember might come in.
$10 booster draft number 1. Please
it depends this much out of Flores. That's the thing. You just saw Stoneforge Mystic.
Right.
But
also Dark Confidant. He played that on the last turn there.
That is true. So yeah, Dismembering, Confidants, and Mystics and Click, all very good. Might bring his own GTAs to fight Edgar's GTAs.
I could definitely see that. It depends what Jordan's really worried about.
And Spell Pierce is reasonable as well,
right.
just like it was on Edgar's side.
Again, Pyroblast really depends how Jordan wants to fight this matchup. He can either fight it with the creatures or fight the counter spells. I have a feeling he's going to bring in GTA Dismember, leave the Pyroblast in the board.
I feel that way too. Although if he thinks Edgar has Jace, this might be right to bring Pyroblast.
That's true too. It's almost a guessing game for both players, how they think the other's going to sideboard, the composition of the other's deck. I would definitely expect if this game, or if Edgar takes game 2 and this match goes to a game 3, for them to re-sideboard a little differently. What will Jordan take out here?
Yeah, this is a little complex. I kind of want to take out the stifles, even though they have a lot of targets. You can stifle Snapcasters, Stoneforge triggers,
right.
Equips, Vendelian Clicks, etc. I can't help but feel like it just doesn't do enough. That's my issue with stifle. It just never does enough. I mean, yeah, you can get their land if you have a great draw, but that game we saw Jordan see 2, and they're just pretty bad for him.
Right. If hitting a land is the best case scenario, then that's not that great of a card. Stifling a Dark Confidant trigger, a Snapcaster Mage trigger, a Vendilion Click trigger, they all leave bodies behind, or sometimes even repeatable effects, so I don't really like Stifle either.
You can even stifle a Stoneforge Mystic and still just have them draw the equipment and put it into play sometimes.
Exactly. I mean, he plays 3 equipment. That's not that unlikely, especially with Brainstorm.
Yep.
So I definitely see Stifle coming out. And as for the other 2 cards, I'm not really sure. Maybe Daze being on the draw.
Yeah, Daze can be all right. Another thing I have to think about, does Edgar have Chrome Mox or not? Well, here we go. They're off to the races. Let's see what happens.
So Island for Edgar, leading on a basic as to not get wastelanded. And with a second land, ships the turn. No Confidant, Snapcaster, or Stoneforge.
Edgar just playing patiently. He does have Bitter Blossom in his hand, so he did bring those in.
Okay.
Edgar does love his Bitter Blossoms. All right. Polluted Delta from Edgar.
An interesting decision after seeing Fire Ice. This must mean Edgar wants to fight a longer game.
Fight a longer game. Or it could also mean he wants to take a more aggressive path, too. I mean, just have enough threats and just keep casting them and casting them and casting them.
That's
first draft open.
Yeah.
The top 8.
Very versatile card, Bitter Blossom.
Little.
Funny about how good that card is, right?
Yeah.
Michael Nielsen, Curtis Nauer, Kyle Lamprez, Brooks Clark.
That seems as Jordan is thinking on his third turn.
And coming in 9th, Clayton Palmer.
So
the top 8 draft will occur at 2 o'clock. You have a lunch break.
All right, down comes Scrubland off that flooded strand. Jordan Basquette asks, what is the shuffling in people's hands about? Well, a couple reasons. A, it's just a nervous tick for a lot of players. B, there is some strategy in concealing the cards that you've drawn, so they don't know what card you've drawn that turn.
Right.
Edgar casts a Stoneforge Mystic there.
One up for days as well.
Leaving one up for days. Some players also just like the snapping sound it makes.
Yep.
If you ever watch Brian Kilber shuffle, like,
oh boy,
you would know.
There's a YouTube video on that if you're curious. But yeah, I think most people, it's just an unconscious thing that they learn. They see other players do it, so they do it, and it sort of just propagates itself.
And it's weird because Magic, I mean, trading card games are the only place you see this, you know? You don't see
right.
other people have hands of cards in other places.
Right, like poker, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Don't see much of that there. So, Stoneforge Mystic getting spell snared.
Yeah.
You missed that. And Jordan's still with no land.
Yeah, he just has Wasteland, Volcanic Island. Edgar has no threats yet, but does have 4 lands, which is what he's going to need. There's a Bitter Blossom down for Edgar Flores.
Oh. Looks like Edgar's hand is Dark Blast, Spell Snare, and Batter Skull.
The thing about shuffling your hand is it can definitely be a tell sometimes. Some players shuffle faster or slower if they're in the tank or worried, and there's a Force of Will or a Pitching Fire Ice on the Bitter Blossom. So,
I personally do it more the more caffeine I have. Imagine that.
It's such a tell. Ponder off Volcanic Island, seeing Ponder, Misty Rainforest, Tropical Island.
And that is just what he wants.
Yep, just like last game, found the 2 lands he was looking for. But he doesn't have a clock this game. Just Jordan has to be on the defensive.
Right.
And Legacy can be so tempo-oriented that being on the draw can make a huge difference. And Jordan doesn't have any way to put tempo in his favor. And if Edgar's plan is just to deploy threat, he's going to be on the back foot the whole game.
It is, yeah, definitely. Edgar's about to drop a Batter Skull here, and really that's his last offensive threat. All he has left is a Spell Snare and a Dark Blast, so he can contain Jordan's threats, but he can't do much in the way of being the aggressor. And he knows he has to put some pressure on, or else Jordan's cards in hand are just going to take over.
And there's a Batter Skull. So Edgar's tapping out for Batter Skull. Germ Token on the sidelines.
Yep.
Resolves.
Wow.
Batter Skull in play.
Yeah, that's going to be huge.
Who needs Stoneforge Mystic?
And with his personalized token.
There's Ancient Grudge,
Grudge.
putting the Edgar token out of play. Does draw Stoneforge Mystic, though.
And that is pretty good.
So looks like Jordan brought in his grudges. Makes sense.
Yep.
There's Stoneforge Mystic out of Edgar. Jordan lets it resolve, but stifles the trigger.
Very nice. Very nice use of Stifle by Jordan. Especially since we know that Edgar has no equipment in his hand. So we'll see what Jordan has in store with 4 mana available. Finally can cast all of his spells. And he decides on a Tarmogoyf.
Alright, Tarmogoyf down.
Spell snared.
Alright, and then Pyroblast the Spell Snare. Get Spell Snare back, Pyroblast it up.
And in case you were wondering, the Stoneforge Mystic is not a wizard. Cannot return that with Riptide Lab.
Correct. That is the one interaction deck. The other stuff you can return: Snapcaster, Dark Confidant,
Vendilion
Click, all wizards. But Stoneforge Mystic just too good not to play.
So Jordan gets in. They're counting it up right now.
Yes, the favorite interaction, counting up the number. Looks like it's 5.
5 power. Wow. Because that Batter Skull in the graveyard, that'll make it up to the 5.
Looks like Jordan is gripping Ponder and Ancient Grudge and Snapcaster.
Ponder, Ancient Grudge, Snapcaster. And this Snapcaster is looking like it'll flashback Spell Snare.
Yeah. There we see the powerful legacy interactions of that card. 2 mana Snapcaster Mage, pay 1, spell Snare that Dark Confidant Edgar's trying to cast.
And trade with your Stoneforge Mystic. Why not?
I guess if that's what you're into, yeah.
Yeah.
Flashes back to Spell Snare. Bam. Tiago doing his job.
Yep. Jordan definitely has the upper hand this match. Edgar will have to draw something very good soon.
Yeah, Edgar no stranger to his archetype, but this does not seem like a very good matchup for him, and he's been on the back foot even though he was on the play this game.
Yep. And
Ponder from
Zona. Very powerful.
Spell Snare, Brainstorm, Fetch Land. Now, I don't like Jordan's play of playing his land first there.
Yeah, definitely not. Turns out it's not going to matter a heck of a lot here, but that's okay.
Did he forget to draw off his Ponder?
No, he drew that Spell Snare.
Oh, he drew that Spell Snare, okay.
And offers the hand.
Yeah, but it takes not a matter of seconds. And Jordan Zona takes it down over Edgar Flores with his rug deck, no counterbalance, rug no balance, beating up on Edgar Flores.
Yeah, Jordan really just had every answer right there. He had the Ancient Grudge for the Batter Skull. He had every counterspell he needed, and the Stifle for the Stoneforge Mystic. So really just had all the answers. Edgar sort of had a threat light hand, drew a lot of lands at the end there. Just could not do it.